Almost everyone in the world still knows who Marilyn Monroe is today because of the impact that she has left on the world. Marilyn Monroe came from nothing, but she left her mark everywhere she went. Her death affected the world greatly. Today we will discuss how Marilyn Monroe came to be an icon in the film industry, how she left her mark on the world, and how her death affected the world. When I would watch old movies with my parents, I would see this blonde-headed lady with a little dot on the left side of her cheek. When I asked my parents who this woman was, they just said she was a movie star and her name was Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe, whose original name is Norma Jean Mornston, had a rough childhood growing up. Her mother had been confined in an asylum many different times. Therefore, growing up, she was in and out of foster care. When she was 16, she got married to James Daughtry, who worked in the same factory as her. However, they only stayed together for about a year before getting a divorce. Marilyn had also met a photographer named David Conover while working at that factory. There, she went and quit her job and moved and started to model for David. She signed her first contract with 20th Century Fox and took her screen name as Marilyn Monroe. From there, Marilyn Monroe made small appearances in movies before her contract was over with Fox. Marilyn started to star in more and more movies, and after her appearance in the movie All About Eve, she got another contract with Fox. Marilyn went on to star in 8 more movies in a 4-year period, as her name spread across the world as a rising star. In 1954, Marilyn Monroe married a guy whose name is Joe DiMaggio, a famous baseball player, and however, the marriage did not last more than a year because she wanted to start and be able to focus on her career. She then remained and remarried with a guy named Arthur Miller after she started to develop in her comedic skills. She was featured in 3 comedic roles: The 7-Year Itch, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and Some Like It Hot. These 3 films turned out to be Marilyn Monroe's most successful and well-known films. Her last marriage ended in 1961 with Arthur Miller after he had affairs and she had a lot of mental health issues. Marilyn left her mark everywhere she went. She was most known for her looks and trademark platinum blonde, along with her beauty mark on her left cheek. She was also a sex symbol at the time. She was one of the Playboy Bunnies of the Month for the Playboy magazine. She made a lot of controversial association with the Kennedy family, and some believe that she had affairs with both President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Attorney General of the United States, Bobby Kennedy. While this affair was never confirmed, it was one of the most talked about affairs in the world. Marilyn Monroe is an icon, from the way she wore her hair to different quotes she has said. There's a photograph. Don't have the photograph, but photograph of her standing in the subway grate while trying to hold down her dress. This is immediately recognized worldwide still today. There are songs written about her, for her, to her, such as Candle in the Wind by Elton John. Marilyn Monroe's death affected the world in many different ways. The mystery and controversy around her death is still today gives writers and conspiracists a fuel to wonder and write about the details of her final days. The fact that she was found dead in her Brentwood, California home by apparent overdose of sleeping pills, her death was ruled probable suicide based off of the lack of evidence of her case. There was no note, nor did she tell anyone that she was going to commit beforehand. She was found half on, half off the bed in her room. This caused people to start thinking that the Kennedy family was somehow involved in her death. Maybe they hired someone to kill her because of the bad relationship they had with her family, or their family. On the contrary, some people do agree that it was suicide because her past with mental health problems and past attempts to commit suicide. Even 60 years later, after Marilyn Monroe's passing, she is still a highly well-known and important part of pop culture. The public was very upset to hear about the passing of Marilyn, and her movies have been brought to a total of $200 million in the past 60 years. Even today, Marilyn Monroe serves as an icon, movie, sex symbol, point of controversy in both ways that she lived and died. Today we talked about how Marilyn Monroe came from nothing. She left her mark everywhere she went, and how her death affected the world greatly. We talked about how her life was growing up. Then we talked about how she came to be. Then and is known as someone who came from nothing. Finally, we talked about her death and how it's full of controversy and mystery. Marilyn Monroe continues to affect and influence society today by the style of her dress, appearance, and speech.